Um, I appreciate and thank you very much for inviting me to attend this important conference on a very relevant and timely issue on how to set up new agendas in governance and policy for sustainable development, and how to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals of 2030 to strengthen the capacity of all nations, and how to create effective governance, monitoring, evaluation, and enforcing the integrity and the development patterns and goals and projects. These are quite critical issues and relevant issues and timely issues. And I appreciate that you raise these issues and you are discussing it. And I wish you all the best for and a great discussion and a great debate, and hopefully a very good outcome that will have some measurable and tangible influence, for policymakers, academics, and all the stakeholders. Now, in terms of new agenda setting, what I am interested in is very much in all the countries of the world, we have 54 African states that need to be included in making sure the Sustainable Development Goals are implemented. And since the Sustainable Development Goals, unlike the Millennium Development Goals, now is not just goals set up for implementing by the low-income countries and developing countries, but also by all countries. What it means is Africans need to become partners, genuine partners, with all the rest of the world to implement the Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals cannot be implemented by a few countries and not implemented by other countries. What it should be is that all countries should make an agreement to make sure, and a partnership to make sure that all the 17 goals and the 169 targets that were set up together are actually implemented, and everyone supports each other and work together. Now, when this comes, we address the issue of the African context and the African specific situation. And the main issues I raise in the abstract you asked me to send is very much related to how the key matters like governance and government, institutions, leadership, can be and systems can be arranged and organized in a very effective and efficient, workable, predictable, sustainable manner to actually realize whatever goals and agendas have been agreed upon, both globally and even locally within African countries. It's no good to declare, to write protocols, but at the same time, after the meeting, ignore them and not implement them. And this is not very good. So, and we cannot afford to do that. So in Africa, we do need some critical changes. On the governance side, we need to know what is good governance, what's effective governance, what is equitable governance, what is governance that can actually deliver, and how do we also measure the effectiveness, the equitable output that the governance creates. These have to be done properly. And if they are not properly done, if there is problem with government and governance, then we'll have strong systematic problems and issues. And I think for setting up a new agenda, we do need a new governance system that actually is very, very well established and well organized. And that is what I think we should try to do in Africa. But the problem we have in Africa, which is a historical one, is that when African countries moved away from colonialism, they did not create independence in the sense that they did not learn how to integrate with each other, work with each other. They still kept relationships with the external powers that used to colonize them. And so what has happened is that the relationship, the governance system, has not been completely self-owned. And there is no agency, and there's no really what we might call genuine independence that emerged. And that has been a problem. And in fact, the divisions that were left by the colonial powers kept reappearing. And in fact, lots of conflicts happened, civil wars, divisions, they kept happening. They still continue happening in our own country, for example, Ethiopia and Eritrea and Sudan and Northern South Sudan. The whole areas in Somalia, all these areas, even the area where we come from, we have all these divisions. There is not been, when the people are the same, I mean, genetically they are the same, whatever, in many ways they are the same, but they don't know how to work with each other. They still relate with external forces and fight each other. This is wrong. A new governance system is necessary to implement a new agenda for sustainable development. That's not going to happen if the divisions continue. Now, another very important thing is, after colonialist powers left formally, they created what they call donor assistance, foreign aid. And instead of making countries partners, what did the countries become? Donorized and donor givers, takers and givers. And this created also another dependency. And that dependency did not allow African countries to create strong partners with each other and also with the rest of the world. So they don't know how to deal with the world and respond to it very systematically. And that has been a big problem. Now, I think these issues have to be systematically addressed in the African context in order to make sure that these key issues you raised in your conference, new agendas in governance, and achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, and creating a very strong, critical, reflective, analytical evaluation and monitoring of the projects and programs. If we want to do this very systematically, we do need a serious change in the African context. And that's very, very important. Another very important thing is there is a weakness in the Sustainable Development Goals, because still what the Sustainable Development Goals says is that how they want economic growth to continue, but with the same logic about how economics is validated. Currently, neoclassical economics, mainstream economics, what they do is justify, measure economic growth with market validation, commercial validation, and success mainly in monetary validation. If they continue to do it in this way, they do not include social validation, nature safety validation. If they are not combined, the economics with the social and the natural, the environmental, we will still have a problem. There is a need to uneconomics economics, to re-economics it by linking with the validation criteria of social gain and economic gain with environmental gain. This have to be completely from start to finish in any process of development. They need to be integrated, combined, included. If they are not combined, they are not included, what will happen is you try to develop economic growth with competition. The partnerships that you want to establish may not be properly done unless there's a criteria for all of them to participate and to make sure that they combined them. Just like the unified field theory in physics, you know, matter, space, time, energy, combined, and then we create some new equation that can connect it. We do need a new mathematical equation to solve. Mathematics helps us to solve all problems. All right? It does not help us to reduce our sadness or to increase our happiness. What it is very good at is we can create a formula to help us solve our problems. In the same way, we do need to create a very important combined, unified validation criteria for economic gain simultaneously with social and environmental gain. If we start rethinking it, relearning it, redoing it, re-engineering it, re-sciencing it in this way, trust me, what we may be able to do is the realization of the sustainable development goals by the year 2030 would be very, very powerful. And I think that attempt to do it in that way is very, very important. And we should not go simply for market validation and commercial validation. And I think a new criteria is necessary. And I suggest a new thought for all of you. We need what I call a sustainable development of hope. We do need a new that combines invention, innovation, incubation, entrepreneurship to generate new products, new processes, and from start to finish, the whole process creates a new dynamics, a new approach, and that's what we do need. And we do need, as my supervisor, Professor Chris Freeman used to say, a new economics of hope. And I think what we need to do is we need to continue to also produce not just firms and enterprises, but what is very, very strong in Germany, which is over 3 million social enterprises they have, I read. And we do need also social enterprises. Again, the validation criteria of social enterprises is different from the validation criteria of firms and enterprises. The firms and enterprises are for commerce and market, but the social enterprises, social entrepreneurship is you give one, you take one, meaning there is equally social and economic combinations in terms of the output, and the way you validate success is not just measured by the way some people earn monetary gain. If we do it like that, we can also create what we call a social entrepreneurship of hope. I am sincerely hoping that for Africa, given our values, our traditions, our indigenous knowledge, our practices, the whole way by which we think and we value is very associational. If we do it, we may encourage, stimulate families and others to work together to create social enterprises. And if we create that, we can create what I call the social entrepreneurship economics of hope. If we do that, we actually then again add hope, validation, and really social validation, well-being validation, in not just simply economic gain validation. If we do it that way, we really will have created new values, new principles, and by so doing, we'll have enrich the benefits of nature, the social relationships, the social capital, the human capital, and also the economic development. If we do all that together, that will be the greatest success we could do. So I think the most interesting thing now, that we should think about very strongly is the criteria for setting up new agenda for governance is critical. Some of the key things that in the governance to really impact on sustainable development that we need to suggest, and I will try to finalize it by making sure that all of you could really appreciate this important thing. We cannot go on with the way the world is now run. The governance systems that are run at the moment are based, if we want social validation, nature validation, economic validation, how do we also build security? Security comes when there's social gain, economic gain, nature gain. But if we do security by building huge military, weapons, all kinds of nuclear and other facilities, and try to scare and make people fear by applying punitive measures, and also by allowing all corrupt practices, despite the fact that, all these things happening, not by social service, not by public service, but by people who are in government becoming public masters. And then people who have no transparency at all in how they earn the resources, where they put their resources, what they gain, what they make. And if we don't have this explicitness, this openness, then governance will always be a problem. It will not, there will be no governance blessing. There will be governance curse. What we need is totally to change the governance arrangements across the world and create partnerships. Actually, if we really want partnership for sustainable development goals to be realized, we need above all partnerships to make sure that the governance system that all the countries follow have some criteria that any violation of those criteria will make those countries that violate them not be eligible to any benefits. Something like that has to be established. In fact, the United Nations should not just state the Sustainable Development Goal to 2030, it should also state how a governance system, a new agenda for governance has to be established, what it is, its effectiveness, its efficiency, its quality, all this in a measurable, tangible way, how they should be done, and evaluation and monitoring them to make sure where no corruption, nothing of these kinds are allowed. All these things have to be established. I think in all places on this planet, the one that needs it most is Africa. Africa is the richest continent in this planet. It has everything, but the people seem to have nothing. Why? And this is because there's poor governance, and the former colonial powers have not left. The divisions are still there. The unity is still not there. We don't know how to actually use our resources. Donors come, but huge amount of resources flow out. And the illicit financial flow every year, over 50 billion goes out of Africa. This is not right. So there is a serious governance issue. There is no transparency. There is no openness. And this cannot go on. So I really like you to discuss these issues very systematically, very seriously, and genuinely find out a way and discover how we might set up a new agenda for governance in order to set up a new agenda for sustainable development goals. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Particularly, I would like to thank Dr. Brahanu Bayena. He's a very good brother, and also Dr. Freud, and all our Korean brothers and sisters who are involved, who cooperate. And I'll do all I can also to facilitate how Swan University of Technology can create the memorandum of understanding that you have drafted, that relationship could be built. And I assure you that I'll continue to produce. If you produce any work, papers or anything, I'll be happy also to contribute. And I appreciate very much what you've done, and congratulations. Continue the hard work with fun and enjoy, and great success I wish you. Thank you very much, and thank you very much.